Respect the sanctity of the Senate. Leave now or you will regret it. You know I cannot do that.
They can't do it because they have a sense of duty and honor. We've been waiting for you. I hoped you wouldn't come. Foolishly, perhaps. Whatever's necessary. You have already crossed the first line. I will not let you cross the last. "10 years isn't long for a friendship in the grand scheme of things. But we've been through a lot together. This is just a step too far. Perhaps you're right. I don't know anymore."
His confidence is wavering. Keep pushing him. I think he can be convinced.
The Rome you love only exists in your head. It is a story you were told when you were a child, which is stuck.
Why are you even still here, ᴛɪᴛ? You had your vengeance. Has it truly consumed you so much that you have latched onto someone else's just to have a reason to keep going?
On the contrary, I have learned that forgiveness is more important than vengeance. Like Silvius, Lurko is dangerous and he must be stopped. But you have earned our forgiveness many times over.
Don't let her silver tongue talk you into abandoning your principles, Centurio! Remember who you are, what you stand for. We will defend the Republic together.
The Republic? I heard you somehow convinced Cato and Cicero to support you. Or at least to get out of your way. Perhaps there is hope for the Republic yet then. So that's what you are. The lesser of two evils. And here I thought Cato was a man of uncompromising principle. Very well. I shall fight with you. But know this. The moment you turn into a tyrant, I will be the first to stop you.
Never trust a traitor, my father used to say. This will not change anything, you know. Just give up. I will let your friends go, and grant you a merciful death. You dare leave your consul's side? Cowards! No one is laughing. You think you can murder a consul in cold blood and get away with it? They will crucify you. Surely this can't be your plan. Not even you can be this reckless. Look around you. See who it is you're fighting. Romans! All of us! I suppose you think that honor will be yours.
I'm conflicted.
A true king is a servant of his people. You are a servant to your vengeance. That's the only reason you're here. At least you'd save the honor and standing of your family.
Slow and steady, people!
There was no glory in this battle.
Maybe we have gone too far.
History will not judge us kindly for this. Come on, let's deal with that son of a dog.
Can you not hear the angry mob outside? Can you hear the cries of the helpless that you swore to protect? When will you understand that everything you fought for... What is happening?
The roof is falling. Seek cover!
The fury of the gods.
Is everyone alright?
We're all fine. But not everyone in here was so lucky.
We have to get out of here.
Good. One final push.
You mad woman! Will nothing make you see reason? Come then! Claim your vengeance!
I'm covering this area.
If you defeat me today, you will only have to take my place. Without true leadership, the Republic will be destroyed!
And so what? She will be a far better ruler than you. Long live the Empress of Rome!
There will always be more obstacles for me to conquer, and I will conquer them. Tiberius, you really are a sight for sore eyes. Where's your family, traitor?
Your hubris has awaited Nemesis for a long time, Rubius. I am here to assist my family, but that's not you.
You would betray your own brother for the sake of a whore! Let us cleanse this bloodline, then!
guy who makes me do this to you.
Republic! Without my efforts, you will succumb to sectarianism and corruption!
Such problems are endemic to all attempts at democracy, but they can and will be conquered. Without you.
Now would be a great time!
Everything I did was for Rome!
I know you believe that to be true, but I have seen firsthand your avarice.
Take your time. It's not like I'm dying here.
Give him in for himself! It is too much!
Of the world is at stake. Rome is a beacon of light in a vast dark sea of darkness.
Your arrogance is boundless. You have visited the lands outside Rome, yet you have never truly
I'm trying to hold.
Why?
Retreat!
You've been dreaming of this since the day your father died. By Jupiter's beard! When will you finally understand it never was about you or your sad excuse for a family? I had plans. Great plans for Rome. The Republic is crumbling, but the establishment always hates the revolutionary. Your father was a spy, a tool of the state. He fought for the status quo. I was forced to eliminate him to save Rome. Maybe. What's clear is that somebody must take charge. The point was never becoming the king. It was that Rome needed a king in the first place. Someone who could cut through the endless dogshit coming out of the Senate. The blatant tribalism, the spiteful self-sabotage, the bribery and greed. We need someone who is willing and able to make difficult and unpopular decisions. Clearly. You think, of all the things a murderer might say to her victim, I agree. I didn't see it coming. Always thought you were a bit of a coward. Turns out I was wrong. It seems the park I intended my role to be in molding the first emperor of Rome. When I am dead, your reign will begin.
Sail away, Rebius. I don't have much to say. Let me repay you for manipulating me and exploiting me your whole life.
Tiberius, you fool. You weakling. And now, you'll do the dirty deeds of...
Up!
It's finally over. It almost seems unreal. Yeah. Maybe now we can stop looking over our shoulder.
You have violated every single rule we set out to protect in the first place. You have killed Romans. Senators, even.
There's one thing you get to decide for yourself now.
We must submit ourselves to the judgment of the Senate, as we discussed. Only then can we begin to undo some of the damage we have caused.
Are you stupid? Did you hit your head in battle? We will all be killed!
Not all of us. She will probably be condemned to death indeed, but we will not be punished as harshly.
We should not get punished at all! We should take over Rome and live like kings!
Deianira is right. Surrender will only lead to execution.
But, Magister, surely morals dictate that she should surrender. Doing anything else would be immoral, and thus make her a lesser woman.
She's like my own child. She would be a lesser woman, but a woman who is alive.
They will not just let us go. We all attacked.
Well, I certainly do not want to be executed.
May I remind you what you have just said about the expected behavior of a moral individual?
I don't consider myself a particularly moral man yet.
I don't care about the philosophy of it. If you stay here, more people will die and the chaos will never end. We don't have to turn ourselves in if you're afraid of the consequences. I'm sure Cleopatra will protect you if you flee to Egypt. Don't do this. I'm warning you. I did not help you stop a would-be king, only to replace him with another.
My debt to you is repaid. I certainly don't owe you any support if you try to overthrow the Republic.
Wale, my friend. It's been a fun ride.
It has been glorious.
I'll make the arrangements, Domina. As you wish. She will be in good hands.
There are some who say it was a sudden change of heart that turned a would-be tyrant from her throne. Most accept the common story. A woman pushed to her limits by a corrupt and rigid system that would afford her no power through legitimate means. A republic on the brink of becoming an empire, vulnerable to the ambitions of unscrupulous men. A desperate, unlawful action that saved the Republic and ushered in a new era of reform and progress. Although in one sense she never returned to Rome, in another, greater sense, she never left. Her actions had shaken the very foundations of society, giving the lie to the notion that women cannot aspire to the lofty heights that men can reach. It is said that she retired to a palatial estate in Egypt, overlooking the lush banks of the Nile. There she became a close and trusted advisor to Queen Cleopatra, under whose rule Egypt soon regained its independence from Rome and was reborn as a matriarchal nation. As commanded, Cinyros stayed behind in Rome when his dearest friends went into exile, joining Lavinia's household to teach her children as he had taught her. Thus the old Servus lived many more years in servitude, always continuing his work with no word of complaint, seemingly happy to be back in the role of the mild-mannered old teacher. Ultimately, what gave Cinyros peace was the knowledge that he had long since unburdened himself with the guilt of the mistakes of his youth. In his final days, he was able to return to Greece at last, and died there, satisfied. When his friends left Rome, Caeso stayed behind in the city to settle down with Lucia and their daughter. Though their relationship was distant at first, the shared love they felt for their daughter soon brought them close, and eventually they had more children together. To his surprise, Caeso took well to the quiet life and to fatherhood, and on the few occasions when he did feel that old lust for adventure bubble back to the surface, he would leave Rome for a time and visit his friends in exile, who were always glad to see him. Callida had stood by her companions through thick and thin, but now it was time for her to stand by herself. As they left Rome, she stayed behind and settled down in the city that had once rejected her. Now, for the first time ever, she felt at home there, though many still looked askance at her for what they perceived as her unwomanly pursuits. She had learned to disregard their judgment, and she had plenty of friends in the city who now respected her for who she was and what she had achieved. Bestia returned to Africa to look for his sister again. Eventually, he did find her, and together they returned to Mauritania, where they settled down in an idyllic village and started new families of their own. In this new, quiet life, Bestia learned the true value of happiness. Deianira followed her friend into exile. Rome had never quite lived up to her expectations, and she was glad to leave it behind. Eventually, she returned to her homelands of Scythia, where she reconnected with her family. But she always remained in contact with her friends, visiting frequently with new stories and exotic spices from distant lands. Vitellius Scaevola left Roman politics and moved to Upper Latium with his wife Liviana, where they raised their children together in peace. Cato remained an important figure in Roman politics, grudgingly respected even by those among the population who desired change. He remained a defender of the patrician class, a shield against the pandering and opportunism of the more populist voices. He himself was elected consul twice throughout his life, and his years in the position were generally favorably regarded. Cicero served one more year as consul before his retirement. In his old days, he lived a quiet life on a farm in Sicily, where he was greatly beloved by the people for his time as quaestor. He continued to write many books on politics and law. Defeated once more by Rome, Mithridates escaped to the lands north of the Black Sea in the hope that he could raise a new army. But the locals soon rebelled against his rule. Incapable of taking his own life by poison, in the end, Mithridates died by the sword of his bodyguard. With Theophilus in charge of Musia, the city-state remained a strong part of the Roman province of Asia Minor. Under his religious guidance, its temples grew wealthy, and it contributed many disciplined soldiers to the legions of Rome. Without the leadership of Damianus, the rebellion of his gladiators soon spiraled out of control, beginning what became known as the Servile War. Escaped slaves terrorized the Roman citizens throughout Thracia until the wealthy senator Crassus brutally defeated them and crucified thousands along the road towards Rome. Lunia's death sent Nazarmanes spiraling into a fractious conflict as greedy elders from minor tribes attempted to fill the void her passing had left behind. Though Queen Cleopatra attempted to bring the region under control, her attentions were too divided, the conflict too great for her to manage. Rome was forced to send more legions to enforce peace and stability with an iron fist. Though Africa Proconsularis eventually saw peace again, the traditions and culture of the Berber population were lost forever. Queen Cleopatra Philopator was, from the day of her coronation, a greatly beloved Queen of Egypt. Revered and admired by the population, she spent many of her days traveling up and down the Nile to visit her subjects and address their troubles and concerns. Under her rule, Egypt remained a powerful and prosperous nation and a strong ally of Rome. The fruits of the Nile flowed freely to the people of the Republic. After traveling all across Africa for many years, going wherever her instincts took her, Raya eventually returned to Memphis and to the service of Tener at the Temple of Ubasti. When her mentor passed away, Raya naturally assumed the mantle as High Priestess of the Cat Goddess. Though the old faith was dwindling, she was greatly beloved by many, and her temple prospered, always home to many, many, many cats. With Diwitiacus once more assuming rulership of the Aedui, the tribe maintained a strong alliance with Rome, and through it, they greatly prospered. With the aid of the Aedui, Gallia slowly unified under Roman rule, and civilization soon began to creep into those lands in the form of paved roads, aqueducts, and fortified Roman towns. In his old age, did the Druid ever regret hastening the absorption and suppression of his own faith and culture? We will never know. The once proud and strong Arwerni were greatly reduced by the defeat of ᴛɪᴛღᴇ, but his survival gave them hope. His will to make war upon Rome had been crushed, but he remained a strong figure of leadership among his people, even despite his failures. With his guidance, the tribes of Gallia remained unified and somewhat at peace, and vestiges of their culture and traditions survived their gradual subjugation under Rome. In this work, I have done my best to recount the history of this fascinating period, truthfully and accurately. As I have scoured the sources and spoken to many who claimed to have heard the story from someone who was there at the time, one thing that has stood out to me is the pivotal moments along the way where our story could have turned out very differently. Might our unusual subject have remained in Rome with her friends to influence its politics in the years to come? Certainly when Legio Victrix crossed the Rubicon, the only way to remain in Rome would have been as its emperor. But perhaps if a different decision had been made on that fateful bridge, a more peaceful resolution would have been possible. One should always take care when second-guessing historical figures with the benefit of hindsight. Here in the present, there will never truly be a way for you to know how you might have acted if you had lived in the past. Nor can you ever be certain how history will remember you.
You think? Is it not beautiful? The banners are all new. They were mounted just last week, in fact. You should be very welcome to. In fact, I would happily give you some of my spare fabric if you manage to beat my champion. Anyway, I know you did not come to discuss decoration. You must be Bestia Tabat. I have heard great tales of your accomplishments in the arenas of Rome.
I am Tabat. I doubt you have heard even half of the tales about me, or you would never have dared to invite me here.
I love it! The confidence and arrogance of a true champion.